Thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy days to spend a little bit of time with us this morning, taking a look at some of the newest features that were included in the new release of Civil 3D 2022. So a couple logistical things. Everybody is on mute right now, and you will be through the duration of the presentation. However, you do have the GoToMeeting controls in front of you. If you do have any questions that come up, please use the question panel and not the chat panel. That way we can look through those, we can sift through the different questions that you may have and find those a lot easier. We find that when they get kind of caught up in the chat, sometimes they get lost and left behind. So I appreciate if you feel free and do that. Also to note, at the end of this, everybody will be getting an email with a link to a recording of the presentation. So if you'd like to rewatch this or maybe show it to some of your coworkers, feel free and do so. All right, but let's go ahead and get started. So before we begin, let's just take a moment and let me introduce you to Microdesk. Microdesk was founded in 1994 as an Autodesk reseller with a simple mission: to assist architecture, engineering, construction owners, and GIS firms with improving workflows and integrating project delivery technologies. 25 years later, that mission still holds true. Microdesk is a well-established AECO consulting firm with 13 offices in the US and the UK. We have over 230 AECO consultants, solution specialists, and software developers that can help in all sectors, all disciplines, and all stages. Some of the hottest topics in the AECO world are globalization, urbanization, and sustainability. Urbanization studies suggest that the US will build 114 cities the size of Boston in the next 30 years. Here at Microdesk, we can help make sure you're prepared to meet these demands. We use software from industry leaders and combine it with our vision and passion for sustainability to meet the demands of urbanization. Our team of industry expert consultants are refining project delivery and asset management. We partner with world leaders such as Autodesk and IBM to utilize innovative technologies and methodologies to empower sustainable design and overcome local challenges. Our vision is to reduce the environmental impact of urbanization by helping the AECO industry to design, construct, and operate better projects more efficiently by leveraging the full potential of BIM, VDC, and asset management. In addition to this, Microdesk has its own line of products to help accentuate your workflows and make things go a little bit easier, more streamlined for you. Some of these products include BIMRX, ModelStream, and Arid. Here at Microdesk, we focus on design, construction, and operations. To help support the industry with these demands of urbanization, we provide full-service consulting. This includes building information modeling services, enterprise strategy and workflow assessment, technology management, mentoring and support, application development, and much more. I'll be your tour guide today. My name is Mario, and I'm a technical specialist here with Microdesk, and I'm a certified Autodesk instructor, as well as a Autodesk BIM implementation specialist. The agenda we're going to be looking at today is we're going to start off by looking at some of the new features that were recently included in Civil 3D 2022, which include features such as the new grading optimization tools, the enhancements to connected alignments, some of the new features and enhancements to the Project Explorer, as well as a few additional features that have been included. And then I'll leave a little bit of time at the end for some questions and answers. So before we get too far into this, one thing I do want to make mention of, because we've already been getting lots and lots of inquiries about this, is for Civil 3D 2022, Autodesk did not change the drawing platform. And so this is completely unprecedented territory. Never in the history of Civil 3D has Autodesk kept a drawing platform for 5 straight releases. So you'll be happy to know all your drawing files from release 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 all work seamlessly with each other. So there will be no reason to upgrade and downgrade and convert projects or anything else. These file platforms work flawlessly across all platforms. So one of the biggest enhancements and newest features to Civil 3D 2022 is the new grading optimization tools. So the grading tools have been in Civil 3D for quite some time. And this is kind of a whole new avenue, a standalone window flyout tool application that can be utilized to come up with several different grading scenarios and automate that workflow for you just by putting in the design criteria that you're interested in and letting the software figure out how things are going to go, what the slopes are going to be, and where things are going to be developed. So it's a really nice tool. You can create as many design concepts as you like and implement them all right into your project. You can get real-time issues if things are, being what you would consider a violation, if you will, not meeting the standards or the criteria that you've implemented. And you'll get real-time feedback as you start working with your design. And then you'll also have the ability to manage the output. Do you want to balance the site? Do you want to minimize the grading impacts? Do you just want the best design possible? All these are options that we can look at. So let's take a moment and explore some of these new tools. All right, so I have a simple file here with just a handful of different objects that we can utilize to kind of play around with. So some of this line work that you see here in this portion of my site is just that. They're just lines and polylines. Nothing fancy is going on here. I do have an intelligent Civil 3D surface, but everything else is just simple lines, two-dimensional lines and polylines. No elevational data, no design information whatsoever at this point. So the new grading tools will be found over on the Analyze ribbon tab. And if you work your way all the way to the right-hand side, you'll see the grading optimization panel. So there's a couple things we can open up. And one of them is going to be the grading object browser. And this is where the intelligent grading objects are going to be stored once they're defined. So all of the grading tools will be found on your tool palettes, just like your typical assemblies and things like that. They're going to have their own tab. And then here's all the various grading properties that can be assigned to different object types. And you can assign them and then set the properties, again, just like an assembly would be, or you can set them in advance. For example, if I wanted to adjust the properties of my parking spaces, I can simply right-click on that and go to properties. And it's going to show me what those values are going to be. And so I'm going to use a maximum slope of 2%, minimum slope of 0.5%, and then I can start adjusting the different values. And then those values will be applied automatically. So let's go ahead and start assigning some properties. So I'm going to start off by establishing my grading limit. So I'm going to select that polyline there and press enter. You'll see that the properties of that object come right up. And I can see that that has established my grading limit here. And then I can use my global design constraints, or I can specify my minimum and maximum slopes, or I can use no slope constraints at all. So that one's been defined. Then I'm going to go ahead and create another zone, just kind of a grading zone, up to the grading limit, just so I have kind of a grading buffer. This one is not a grading limit, so it is just a defined zone. Then I'm going to work my way into the site, and I'm going to go ahead and establish a building pad. I'm going to select this, enter, and again, I can choose to give it a known elevation I've designed for, or I can leave it off and let the software figure out what that pad is going to be. I can also define a depth of material and as well as colors. So that looks good. Let's continue on. Let's go ahead and do some curves. So I'll go ahead and grab all these little curve islands. And now those are all defined as well. So if I select any one of those, we can see the properties that have been defined. I can then define some of these parking stalls here, 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 and here. Now those are all defined as well. You can see it's adhering to those properties that we just looked at a moment ago. So that's all looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and put in a pond. Select that. And my max storage is going to be 10,000. Let's go ahead and go with a maximum depth of 10 feet. That looks good. I can choose to put a berm additionally on there if I choose to, or adjust that edge condition however I like. And then I'll add a couple drains, a couple drain lines, flow lines, if you will. So these can be just graded flow patterns or ribbon gutters or whatever you'd like them to be. All right, so we've just defined a few different objects. There's other things we can do. We can use low points and set a couple of Kogo points to grade to various locations and different things like that. But for now, I think this looks pretty good. So let's take a look at what design iterations may come from what we've just defined. And you can see also on my object browser that all of these elements I've defined are stored in here now. And I can select these. I can change the properties at any time. You can also change them as the design iterations evolve. So let's go ahead and try this out. So we're going to go up and choose Optimize. Give that a second to launch. And as you can see, it opens up in its own standalone application window. So it's going to take a second to generate. And now I can navigate about this site. I can look at anything I want in here. And I can also select elements, just as we did in Civil 3D, and change the properties. So if I don't like the way the design is going, I can change things on the fly, and that's how I can come up with different iterations. So before I begin, some of the other things I'm going to want to look at are going to be the settings. So what are my slope conditions? So my maximum slope is 33%. Let's go ahead and make it something flatter. I know I'm going to get violations, but I actually want to do that so we can see how we get that real-time feedback. We'll do slightly less. We'll do 50,000 iterations. And now we can control what we want the outcome to be. Do we want to balance the cut and fill? 100% means yes. We can take that down to somewhere in the middle. Or if we don't care about the balance at the moment, we just want a good design, we can take it down much further. We can adjust minimize the earthwork. And then we can even tell it to smooth the surface and triangulations as we go. So for now, I think I'm just going to take that down a little bit. That looks good. And then over here in our settings, we can also tell it some of the preferences of what it's going to do as it's generating the final design. So what is the quality of the surface tin? We'll leave it at medium right now. We can also get rid of any of the EG points, and we can adjust the triangle sizes as well. So I think that looks good for now. And so let's just go ahead and say optimize. You can see how the feedback is coming in. I'm getting a notification that between my grading limit and my first zone, it's about 39% slope, which is still less than a 2-to-1, so I'm okay with that. And now you can see how it's taking my 2D line work and it's already building up a grading pad. I'm starting to get a pond over here. We can see the flow lines, and you can actually see those contours dynamically adjusting as it's refining the design. And you can see how the parking stalls have a flatter grade than the rest of the parking area does. We can also turn on the heads-up display controls and look at the convergence plots and see how it's going through the different iterations. As you can see, it's just barely starting those 50,000 iterations. And you don't have to wait through the 50,000. You can iteratively stop this whenever you choose to. But what we can do is we can also control how we're seeing this. We can just look for the red spots to see the slopes that are pretty extreme. One of the things I like to typically do is turn on the hydrology, which is going to show me the arrows, the flow directions. And that's going to show me how I can see my flow lines are working. Okay, and everything's draining to that pond over there. That looks good. And again, I can stop this at any time. And then I can simply come in and say, well, that looks pretty good, but let's minimize some of this earthwork adjustments. We don't need to worry about smoothing right now. And then we can run it again. And you can see that pad is built up there. It's going to reset with those new values that I've chosen and come up with, again, a new design concept. So it's working its way through thematically and looking at the different rules and properties and constraints I've defined. And it's defining that site for me. So I haven't had to go through and calculate a pond size or depths or a building pad or anything at this point. And it's just simply going through and figuring out what my design is going to be. And again, I can let this thing just sit and run till I'm happy with it. I can stop it at any given time. And when I'm done and everything looks good, I can simply stop this. I can go over and say, send this optimization result. And then back in Civil 3D, I can choose to bring in a new surface with all of this new grading in it. I can have it generate the feature lines. That way I'm going to have 3D polylines for all of the curbs and slope edges and ponds, things like that. And then any low points and such I may have done will come in as Kogo points as well. So let's go ahead and create a new surface. We'll call this new grading. And we'll choose a style for it. We'll do 1 in 5 design contours. And then for the feature lines, we'll just have them put it in a new site with the basic style. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and choose finish. My event viewer is going to pop up just to let me know that there's some duplicate points that may have gotten ignored and omitted from the property definitions. But I can just go ahead and close that out. And as you can see, this new surface, without me doing anything design-wise, calculation-wise, trying to figure out what my design was going to be, it actually went through. And even though I stopped it a little bit early, you can see all my curbs have been done. My parking lot's been defined. My pad has been defined. And again, I can work through different design concepts, design iterations, and send all of these right into Civil 3D. And this cuts down a dramatic amount of time that you would normally spend conceptualizing your grading design by letting the software figure those things out for you thematically based upon the properties that you choose to utilize. So it's definitely a really cool little tool. And I'm very excited about that one. Another enhancement they've done, and it's kind of an enhancement slash new feature, if you will, is the connected alignments. So connected alignments came out a little while back, and they're really handy, really useful. If you haven't had a chance to play with them, I definitely recommend it. They're good for curb returns and things like that. And so we've added some new functionality to those that we want to explore. So we can have a lot more control over the curves and the grouping and the properties of that connected alignment. We can also do loop ramps now. So if you happen to have these little clover leaf kind of interchanges and things like that, we can do these very quickly and easily as well. And then once those are generated, we can control them like we do most alignments through alignment properties or through grip control and things like that. So let's take a look at some of that now. So I happen to have a couple alignments representing an intersection as well as some offset alignments that are dynamically connected to those parents. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Home Ribbon tab. And on my Alignments drop down in my Create Design panel, I'm going to come down to Create Connected Alignment. I need to choose the two alignments that I want to base it off of. So I'm going to select this one and this one. Pick my location. I want it to go right about there. That looks good. So I'll press Enter to accept that. And in previous versions, we always had the ability to name it, apply a style, things like that. We don't necessarily need any labels on it. And we always could put in a criteria and even a connected alignment. But besides that, all we could really do was define a radius before. But we have this new parameters tab now, where we can go and define different curve groups. So you can do a circular fillet and see what that's going to look like. We don't need any offsets here, so let's go and zero that out. There we go. You can also go to curve, spiral, curve, spiral. Preview that, see what that's going to look like. Reverse, preview that. If the geometry won't be definable based upon the radius and properties you've set up, you can change the values to something smaller or choose a different design concept to see if those things are going to work. So those things are pretty cool in that regard. And we also have the ability to put in overlap connections. So we'll kind of trace the two alignments, if you will. So that's a really nice enhancement that they've done. But another really cool thing they've done is now we have the clover alignments, if you will. So if I toggle over to that type of property, I can preview this, and we can see that it's going to come in that way. Again, I can go through and choose different curve groups and see what design concepts are going to fit. And some of these properties are a little bit too big. That's okay. We can kick that down if we need to. So this one, you can see how we're going to kind of follow along, come off of this one, off of a spiral. Yeah, it's going to be a reverse, come around, swing it around. So that's looking pretty good. It's a pretty nice little alignment there. And I can go ahead and say, okay, it's going to define that. Again, I can put in station label groups if I want to, or whatever I need to do. And then I can also select that, and I can use my grip controls to adjust properties, offsets, radii. I can go into my various properties of that alignment, as well as bring up my geometry editing toolbar, where I can start looking at the various properties that have been put together for that. So if you've ever had to do any of these clover alignments for various ramps and things, you know they can be a little bit tedious. You end up kind of drafting and engineering these on your own manually and then defining them from polylines, where this is a much more efficient, streamlined way to generate those. So definitely a cool little tool. And we've also gotten some new functionality as it relates to Project Explorer. So Project Explorer, and actually should have mentioned it too for the grading optimization tools, both of these features are available to AECE collection as well as enterprise license owners. And so once you have these, you'll see that the Project Explorer came out last year, but it's added a lot more functionality now. And one of the kind of really predominant tools to working with just about anything in your drawing, because it really manages and controls and allows you to create blanket property adjustments very easily on lots of different types of objects. So because it's become so popular, it has been moved right to the Home Ribbon tab. So you'll find it right on the front end as soon as you open up the software. And it now supports all local languages. And some of the newest functionality that is only available in 2022 is it now supports pressure pipe networks. So as it relates to the pressure pipe networks, there's lots of different things that we can do with these. So we can bring those up in our Project Explorer. We can edit the network's information itself. We can edit the naming, the styles. We can automatically, dynamically show profiles over the pipes and the various pipe runs. We can edit multiple properties, again, at once. We can edit the layouts of the pressure networks as well as the parts. We can generate reports as well as tables for parts, networks, or runs. You know, lots of different cool things. And then aside of the pressure pipes, they've also added functionality to support feature lines that are not included in sites, so standalone feature lines. So let's take a look at some of that now. So I happen to have a little pressure pipe network laid out right over here. And again, your Project Explorer is going to be right here on your Home ribbon tab. So you'll see that right there. Previously, it was on the Add-ins tab. So we'll go ahead and launch that. And if you're not familiar with the Project Explorer, it's a really cool tool, something definitely worth exploring, because again, you can make lots of really fast global changes to your design without having to edit every single piece and part manually. So along the top, you'll see all the different categories. So you can see I happen to have 8 alignments in here, no corridors, the point groups, a surface, 20 feature lines, you know, lots and lots of things. And down here, we can get to all the various properties. So as you cycle through these, you can work with the data, but you can also edit the data. And so if I come over here and look at my surface, I can change styles, I can adjust properties on it. Same thing with my pipe networks. So here's my pressure pipe network. And I can control my displays right down here just by choosing what properties I want to see throughout this, and whether I want to see the ground above it, things like that. And then I have it all divided out. Here's all the various pipes that are making that up. Here's all the various fittings. I don't have any appurtenances, and 9 runs. So very easy to be able to go in, look at the properties. I can globally select things and make design changes, pipe size changes, slope changes, again, without having to go to each individual piece and part. So definitely saves you lots of time when you're editing a system. Okay. We can also come in and go ahead and create an object set. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll call this water. And then once you make an object set and put that system in there, you can generate lots of different report types, table types, things like that. So I'm going to say, in this case, I'm going to generate a table in model space. And I'll pick a point where I want it to go. And we'll just pick some more off to the side over here, right there. That looks good. And then you can change all the properties and things, but that's fine. So now that's defined, let's go ahead and add some content to that. And we'll go ahead and we will add our water system. Say okay. And all that's been defined now. And I can say run the selected action. And you can see right off to the side how that table got generated. I'll go ahead and choose close. And you know, I didn't customize this in any way, but you can see now I have a dynamic table for my entire pressure system with all of its properties that's going to update as I make changes to the design. All right. An additional enhancement that you'll see in the software for release 2022 is at the top of the screen on your quick access toolbar, you will see a new share button. And that new share button is going to allow you to share a link to a drawing, and it's going to save a copy up to your cloud account and generate a link that you can share with your consultants, contractors, whoever may be. And you can set it up to be in view only mode or in something that they can edit and save. So it's a really nice way to be able to share those files without having to upload things to FTP sites and things like that. They've also added some new enhancements to pressure pipe networks themselves. So they've given you the ability to control the display, if you will, of the layout compass. So now you can go into the options on the ribbon and adjust the size, the color, things like that. So it's a little more user-friendly. And on the profile ribbon for pressure systems, they've added path-based pressure systems, which is pretty nice. So now you can do that straight off the ribbon as well. They've also added spanning labels for pressure networks, which is great because previously you could only do single segment labels. So now we can do spanning labels across entire runs, which is pretty handy also. Also, PVIs can now be removed from the overwritten station ranges of the pressure networks. And so if those have been set up to static, you can make those adjustments. And then there's also, I don't know, I guess you might call it a hidden command that really wasn't publicized that they did include as well. And that command is regen pressure solid. And what that'll do is it'll generate 3D solids of your pressure system, which is really great if you want to share that with InfoWorks, Navisworks, 3ds Max, anything like that, where you're going to want a 3D model of that pipe network system. So really cool in that regard. They've also done some enhancements to the ArcGIS connection workflows. So now raster data that's imported can be refreshed independently, which is pretty nice. And so that's a really cool different feature. Also, the resolution can be configured separately as well with each raster layer. So as you're importing those or refreshing those, you can actually adjust the resolution per layer, not globally for the entire drawing. And also the resolution levels for importing the GIS data for rasters has been extended. It used to be 19 levels, and it's now up to 23 levels. Also on your tool space, you'll notice that the default content libraries have been greatly enhanced. So you're going to find lots and lots more tabs up there. And in there, you're going to find entire libraries for things like parking, landscape, building footprints, highways, different city furniture, signage, foliage, things like that. So there's lots of trees and shrubs and plants and flowers and all kinds of different things you can do to further enhance your designs. And also remember too, keep in mind that Civil 3D is written on top of Map 3D as well as AutoCAD. So what that means is, in addition to a lot of these new features I've shown you, you're also getting the benefit of all of the new features that were included in those other products as well. So just a quick recap on some of the things we saw today. So we start off by looking at the new grading optimization tools and how to utilize some of that, define it, and come back with different design iterations. We looked at some of the new connected alignments. We looked at the Project Explorer and how it's now supporting pressure pipe systems, as well as some of the additional features that have been included. So at this point in time, I'm going to take a look at our questions panel and see if we have any questions. And if you haven't posted anything in there yet, feel free and type any questions you have now in there, and be happy to answer those for you. Okay, so one of the questions came in, have any new assemblies been added to the catalog? There's been some new properties that have been defined, and there are a few new assemblies, not entire new panels, so to speak, as some of this other content has been completely new to us, things like parking and stuff like that. But there have been a few new enhancements, not a dramatic one. I think at this point, Autodesk is more relying on you to utilize your subassembly composer to go ahead and generate your custom assemblies on your own going forward for your own needs. But very good question. Thank you for that. Can you enter a volume for the for the pond size? Yes, you can. Some of the properties will allow you to utilize some basic design concepts for the ponds, but you can put in an exact value if you choose to. And so it allows you to put that in. But again, some of the nice benefits of utilizing that tool is the ability to, not necessarily have to figure that out and let the software calculate that for you. But you can absolutely define a pond capacity as well as a depth, as well as edge conditions as well. Can corridor models be incorporated into the grading enhancement tools? At this point in time, there's no real property definition for those. Again, it's more looking for line work, points to define geometry, high points, low points, things like that. It wouldn't really accept a corridor or any of its components at this point in time. But what you could do, if that was something you wanted to incorporate, was you could use the corridor tools, and then as your corridor has been defined, generate a corridor surface, whether it be a top or a datum surface, and then you can utilize that as part of your design. Any idea when Autodesk will have a service pack available? Well, I am part of the beta testing team. I know we're working on them. Unfortunately, due to non-disclosure, I can't release a specific date on that. But I can tell you it's not ready for prime time just yet. But there is one that is currently being tested, and it will be released as soon as we've worked out any bugs and kinks and feel that it's ready for release. Okay, lots of good questions. I appreciate that. Oh, how does the grading optimization tool determine parking access aisles? That's going to be part of your definitions. So you can define zones, and your zones will have different grading properties. For example, dirt outside the grading area, you might put in slope conditions that can be up to 50% or 2 to 1. Your pavement, your AC, if you will, you might have obviously much stricter conditions. Maybe you don't want to go above 2 or 5%. And then your parking stalls, especially things like ADA stalls and such, you might have those as flat as 1 or 0.5%. And so by defining the various zones, in turn, you're going to be defining ultimately what those drive aisles and such are going to be. And then again, if you want to kind of drive your design conditions, say you want to put in a ribbon gutter that runs along the drive aisle and then ultimately outputs to the driveway, you can put that in as a flow line. And again, just defining those zones, those parking stalls, and those flows will in turn ultimately develop that drive aisle. All right, so another question came in is, Okay, the surface that is created is a true tin surface. Yes, it is. If we wanted or needed to create spot elevations, is there any difference in creating spot elevations than what is typical? The workflow itself would be the same in creating those spot elevations by utilizing, Kogo points, if you will. The additional step that you would take, however, is once you've defined those Kogo points, you would go into the grading elements and you would define those Kogo points. You would select those and you would define those as your low points, high points, things like that. And that would help drive that as part of the grading. All right, so we're getting lots of good questions. That means you guys are interested in this, and that's very good. Is there any way to optimize traffic patterns using vehicle tracking? Well, the data set I used was actually developed through the vehicle tracking tool, but it won't change any of the vehicle tracking design layouts, if you will. It won't move, parking rows and such like that to optimize it for you. You would have to at least get that conceptual layout put together initially. And let's see here. Is data connector between Trimble and Civil 3D bidirectional? And what are the plans moving forward with making VDC functionalities more mainstream in Civil 3D? That's a little bit kind of off topic. We didn't really encompass any of the things we covered today. I'm happy to kind of table that off and have a conversation with you on the side about that. But I do know that, yes, Autodesk has been working closely with Trimble. As you know, Trimble does have a Civil 3D extension that you can install to give you Trimble ribbon tabs and additional functionality. And they do keep those things up to date and roll out updates as new releases come out so that they will remain bidirectional. I do believe, however, at this point, Autodesk is relying on Trimble to make their enhancements to their add-on extension pack, and Autodesk isn't actively doing things to accommodate Trimble on their end. But again, I'm happy to have a conversation with you on that off to the side if you'd like. And I think that's about it for questions. So lots of good questions. Again, if anything comes up later on that you have questions on, you can always contact us, and we'll be happy to discuss these with you. As I mentioned at the beginning of this too, you will be getting a follow-up email with a link to a recording of this presentation, and our contact information will be done on there as well. And if any of these other questions, or you want to talk one-on-one about any of these workflows, feel free and reach out to us, and we'll be happy to assist you. Other than that, I want to thank you all for taking your time out of your day to come and spend a little bit of time with us looking at some of these new features. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you, and have a nice day.